I don't know how many of you played Days Gone, but it's actually quite a good game. It's not a 10 out of 10, that's for sure, but it's definitely above average, and I really enjoyed it when I played it. Unfortunately for the game, it had a lot of things going against it. Number one, it released in a time where other games came out within the same month. So people didn't have the money to buy this one as well, which is why it's not going to get a sequel. Because a lot of people said, oh, I'm going to wait when it's on sale, due to the fact that the game focused on the zombie genre. And a lot of people were kind of tired and had a little bit of zombie fatigue. But the game is actually quite good. It adds really interesting things to the zombie genre. Number one, it focuses on motorcycles. You get to upgrade it, and it feels really cool when you're driving, especially during the night or when it's stormy outside. The zombies, they have interesting AI mechanics. Not only are they different, like Left 4 Dead type of different with various mutations and stuff, but they also create massive hordes and they follow the player around. It's really great. I definitely love the game. And the story, like it has a couple of things lacking, but it's interesting. It's got like a lot of mystery going with it, and some of the characters are quite fascinating. Some of the first towns you find aren't really fleshed out and they're not really well done, but other than that, it's a compelling story that makes you want to play more because you're excited in order to try to find out what's happening next. But unfortunately, despite the fact that the game ended on a cliffhanger and it was like a mind-blowing experience, which I'm not going to ruin to you if you want to play the game, because it's going to come out on Steam, so you can play it on PC. The game didn't get a sequel. And the reason it didn't get a sequel is because the company was actually pitched the idea of a sequel, but they wanted to focus on The Last of Us remake. Very bizarre, okay? Especially since The Last of Us came out last year and it was muddied in controversy. And I don't know if The Last of Us 2 sold well. I mean, maybe it did, but you have to take into account that usually a game sells based on its predecessor. So let's say that Assassin's Creed number 1 sells very well, right? Now, people are going to buy Assassin's Creed 2 based on the previous game. I don't know how many people are going to buy The Last of Us now, especially after the last one. Like, which characters are you excited to see? What part of The Last of Us are you excited? I think it kind of makes sense because I believe they're making a show on television about The Last of Us, so maybe they're like trying to take advantage of that. But I would have really loved to see Days Gone the sequel. And the director is saying that if you love a game, buy it at full price. Because a lot of people like myself are complaining because again, like the game ended on a cliffhanger and it had something solid going. Like if the second part would have took the first and added on its foundation, I think it would have made 8 out of 10 game hands down quite easily. But like the director is pointing out that if you want the sequel, you should buy it at full fucking price. How would people know that the game is good? Especially my advice to the director is I don't know how the business is going. I don't know if the publisher gets to decide this or not. But how about if it's a new IP, don't sell it in the same month when 3 other major IPs come out? Just, my 2 cents. Like, try to sell it a little bit earlier or a little bit later, but don't sell it in the same month where 3 other major titles come out. So, yeah, I mean, this came out in Bloomberg. There was an unsuccessful Days Gone 2 pitch, and the director is no longer with Sony. And he said that there was a meaningful lack of uptick in the engagement with the game. I do have an opinion on something that your audience may find of interest, and it might piss some of them off. If you love a game, buy it at fucking full price. I can't tell you how many times I've seen gamers say, yeah, I got that on sale. I got it through PS Plus or whatever. Yeah, but like, again, gamers aren't made of money. Like, I understand your pay piggies are are not up to par, and they're not willing to just throw the cash in. But it is what it is. There's a lot of good movies, that didn't manage to get a sequel, and only after years passed, people realized that they were actually very good. Event Horizon would be a great example of this. You know, it didn't sell well when it released, but now it's considered to be a classic, and a lot of people would have liked to see a sequel or a remake if it was done well, but I wouldn't put my hopes up. I'm just saying don't complain if a game doesn't get a sequel if it wasn't supported at launch. It's like God of War got whatever number of millions of sale at launch, and these guys didn't. I'm just speaking for me personally as a developer. I don't work for Sony. I don't know what the numbers are. I think it didn't sell that poorly, but again, like Sony is interested with The Last of Us. Again, kind of makes sense because they want to do the what is it, Netflix adaptation or whatever. Garvin continued to explain this reasoning by explaining a piracy situation that occurred during his time with the game Dark Mirror. I can tell you that when we were doing Siphon Filter, never played it by the way, we got so fucked on Dark Mirror because piracy was a thing and Sony wasn't really caught up on what piracy was doing to sales. And we would show them torrents, and a torrent site had 200,000 copies of Dark Mirror being downloaded. If I remember it right, the number could be wrong, but regardless, I was pissed about it then. I was like, this money is out of my pocket. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into piracy, but a lot of people make the mistake thinking that just because something is pirated doesn't mean that those 200,000 copies would materialize in actual game sold. I know people in Romania, right, which bought a console at the time, modified it so that they could pirate games. Like, basically, these people would never have bought a console if they couldn't pirate it because they couldn't afford it. Like in Romania, what was it? At the time, minimum wage was around $100, right? And the games were like $60 a game. Impossible for a person to be able to afford that. So, especially if these torrent sites come from Eastern Europe, Russia, those places where people are legitimately poor and they can't afford to buy a $60 game. I'm not excusing piracy, by the way, but what I am trying to say is that you wouldn't necessarily know that all those 200,000 copies would have translated into sales. Especially since I also know people who pirate the game first, and if they like it, they buy the product, right? Piracy, because it doesn't cost anything, a lot of people don't have anything to lose if they don't like the game. But if they couldn't pirate, that doesn't necessarily mean they would buy it, simply because they're not attracted by the trailer or they're not attracted by the reviews or anything like that. I kind of see why a developer is a little bit upset, like the game doesn't sell and you look at the torrents and it's like, oh my god, 200,000 copies. But, So I think the uptick in engagement with the game is not as important as did you buy the game at full price, because if you did, then that's supporting the developer directly. Well, yeah, but a lot of people, I guess, also would be supporting the publisher, right? And here's another thing, like here's a hot take, like if this is the God of War developer, if you want people to buy your game at full price, shut the fuck up when it comes to politics. Like, seriously, all right? Like, it doesn't matter if you make the best game ever. But if you're going to have hot takes on Twitter and you're going to have like controversial pushes, you're just going to alienate some of your user bases. Like, even if you alienate 10,000 people, right? Or you're freaking out about the 200,000 copies. That's 10,000 people that could buy your product. And let's be honest, all right? Like, I know people like to pretend this isn't the case, but there's a lot of people that could have bought, for example, Battlefield 5, but didn't because the developers had really hot takes when it came on issues of politics. Mass Effect Andromeda, another example. So I really think that video game developers should shut the fuck up when it comes to politics. All right? Just this game, for example, Days Gone, I don't think it had any political issues with it. You have a character that's more like Alex Jones, very libertarian, and he's got like interesting opinions. And I like what the game did with it. In one point, he was having a speech saying, we're preppers, and because we didn't trust the government, we hoarded a lot of stuff, and we have weapons, and now we can hunt and fish, and we don't have to rely on anyone. And the main character goes like, yeah, that's right, you're preppers, and now everyone wants your shit. Now everyone is going to come up and gather together in order to take what you have. Um, and I think that's respectful. You know, it's a different point of view. Like, it didn't mock the libertarian, and at the same time, you know, you give a good counter answer. Um, yeah, I personally like the game. The villains were relatable, most of them. I mean, you don't really have a villain that's like cartoonishly evil. Um, this was really good. Yeah, so it's going to come on the PC. It's one of the games that I enjoyed. I want a sequel for it, so you guys should check out a trailer for it. And if you like what you see, then buy it. In my opinion, it's worth the purchase, especially if you play it on the hardest difficulty level. It does feel like a survival game. Got a good crafting system. The motorcycle mechanic is really cool, and you're probably going to get invested by the story. So my gift to you, you know, recommending you a game. Check it out and let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll see you guys there.